All right, I call this meeting to order of the Public Health Organization and on 1 o'clock, May 18th, 2023. Attendance, please.
Artist. Here. Don.
Here.
James.
Here.
Jessica. Here. Mike.
Here.
Pam. Here. Rod.
Present.
And Roger's not able to make it.
All right, I can stand and join the pledge. Thank you.
Thanks.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, board, I need a motion to approve this afternoon's agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second. Second by Holmquist, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Agenda is approved. Citizen comment, we had one that was scheduled to be in person and we have no one online. That's still the case, you know?
I believe so. Will?
Yep.
Would you like to?
Sure.
Everybody, I'm Will Goodpaster, TD&H Engineering, and my public comment today was just to express some concerns in my opinion towards separating the appeal process from the application for a variance through the Board of Health. I've got a project without going into a few details on it that is not looking to appeal the decision made by the health officers or any of the Board of Health members, but I am seeking a variance with it. And going through the appeal process, I feel is involving several people's time that might not be warranted because it is not looking to appeal, none of return any of those decisions just to get to a variance request. So I don't know any mechanisms for that, but in my opinion, I feel like the two of them in this situation especially is very different. So if there could be some changes made to the county standards to allow those applications to be separate, I think that'd be great. Appreciate it. Thanks, you guys.
All right. Motion to approve the minutes from April 20th. I make motion. Second. It's been made, second by Coons to approve the minutes from April 20th. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Move on to departmental reports. We'll start with animal shelter.
Hello, Austin Hicks. Austin Hicks here. I've got you've got the April stats there. There were a couple things I wanted to kind of go over. One of the things was under the dogs, we had it lists one dog died in custody. And I just wanted to clarify that was one that was hit by a vehicle and was taken to the emergency vet, and the owner ended up, they got a hold of the owner and ended up putting the animal down themselves. For our reporting stats there, that goes under a dead animal, not a euthanized, and we did not euthanize it. And then also under cats, we have one that escaped. It did not escape our facility. That was a foster mom that we had fostered out that had a litter of kittens. The mom got out the door on the foster parent. We still had all the kittens. So just wanted to go over both of those. I'll answer any questions about the April stat, but I wanted to also go over what we had happen at the beginning of this month. I'm sure you all were aware we had a full house. We had 42 dogs in-house on May 1st. We had 42 kennels, so we were full. And I ended up putting out the SOS help signal, I guess you could say, saying we needed help. We waived adoption fees. We ended our owner surrenders that week. And just from May 1st to May 8th, we had 19 dogs that got adopted. 14 strays got returned to their owners. One dog got transferred to the Humane Society, so all in all, after that 1 week, we got down to 21 dogs in house, so it was good. Oh my God, unless we have any questions.
Any questions?
I do want to thank you for following up on the service in and out. That was, again, one of those little things in the back of our minds, and I think it helps all of us to figure out what's going on. So thanks for that.
Yeah, no worries.
Do you think so that the reason it was easier to get dogs out was because you waived the fees?
I don't know, because that, I'm sure that was part of it, but also just getting the word out when people, hear that the shelter is full. Some of those people have been on the fence on, oh, do I want an animal, do I not? Then they feel that need to, oh, the shelter's full, we need to help out, let's go get that dog.
How critical is the revenue from the fees to the functioning of the animal shelter?
So with that, we have to weigh the amount it costs us for care per animal per day. And so it's something that I know in the past, the previous director said that they would waive fees in certain situations. I don't know that he ever advertised it, quite like I did, but I felt like we were in a crisis and we needed to get some dogs moved.
Go ahead. No, I just wonder if obviously you don't have the problem all the time, but if the balance of lower fees and lower animals or higher fees and more animals, if there's a way, unless the revenue is critical, to keep the fees sort of down some more dog, if that's the reason it happens, for dog, we have less occupancy all the time.
It's pretty well researched that, if you don't have fees for dogs, that then they end up going to homes that are negligent.
Oh, okay.
So it's best to actually have a fee when people are invested at least a little bit. And then otherwise they go dog fighting or they stay there. Sometimes foods don't care.
And in the past, we have waived the fees. So previously, it was in December that we waived fees and we ended up having 5 dogs returned that we had already adopted out, probably because there wasn't that monetary investment that the people had to make. So they felt like they could just return them. So it was critical with what Austin did, and we were able to get them out. And I don't think you had any returns, did you?
Not yet.
Yeah, so it's kind of hit or miss.
And that period was amazing. I had that pop up in my Instagram feed. I had it pop up in everyone's story and I saw it like 20 times. I was like, oh, they're really doing a good job. So that was good.
All right. Any more questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, community health.
Good afternoon, Jillian Gold, Community Health Nurse Supervisor. So starting off in our immunization clinic, not a whole lot to update. We're just continuing to see an increase in patients that are needing like immunizations prior to going to college or enrolling in classes right now. We did set dates for this August where we'll offer back to school immunization walking clinics where people get ready to go to kindergarten and 7th grade or any grade. WIC is still staying steady and seeing more clients in person as well. The WIC staff just attended their national WIC conference where they're able to do continuing education and continue to provide outreach as well in the Whitefish Food Bank. They've been doing that. The home visiting programs are performing well and referrals are coming in. Our lead, Karen, one of the home visitors, informed us that we're seeing a lot more referrals with higher needs, especially such as domestic violence coming in. Our Parent as Teachers program has a 0 waiting list, and so that's actually great because that allows for our social workers and staff to be able to allow more on their caseload and be able to help more in that with those higher needs. May is also Asthma Awareness Month, and so our Montana Asthma program has done some activities, including like provider newsletters, posters, social media outreach, kind of an instance because we have all this smoke, so maybe we'll see even more of an uptick with asthma attacks and stuff coming. And we're doing really great with that program. Last thing I wanted to touch base on is we received a $50,000 mini grant through the Center of Children, Families, and Workforce Development that's specifically focused on primary prevention. This funding is set through the end of 2023, and we're implementing primary prevention campaign that's targeting substance abuse in Flathead County schools. We're going to offer interventions specifically in the middle schools of Flathead County schools with 3 tiers of participation. So I'm just going to go over just those 3 tiers real fast. The first tier is going to be an information dissemination campaign. Where we're going to provide materials, posters, resource cards for teachers, parents, some more of that material piece to get that information out. The second tier is going to be educational offerings in the classroom and school-wide settings. So we have a community health nurse and a health promotion specialist tag teaming to offer this education. Specifically going over risk of using drugs and alcohol, going over strategies for saying no to drugs and alcohol, and teaching rule setting skills. And then the third tier will be offering caregiver education events led by health department staff. Overall, the goal is to provide at least 1 tier intervention in at least 3 schools in Flathead County by the end of 2023. So far, we've gone to 2 schools, West Valley and Deer Park, on the 7th and 8th graders where we provided education. And in these schools, we educated 118 students. And right now we're having conversations with School District 5 to start implementing this project in the fall. Kind of a lot. And might have found it a little fast, but if you guys have questions?
I have one, thank you. Is there any data so far? And I don't know, this might not even be in this purview, but is there an increase in drug use, marijuana use, especially since the passage of legalization of recreational marijuana? Are we seeing an uptick in juvenile use?
So the youth risk behavior survey for 2023 was just being done over the last couple of months, so we won't get that data for a little bit.
Thank you.
This grant is for middle schools.
That's what the target is. We're focusing is on the school, but correct me if I'm wrong, Kiwani, it is.
Yeah, no, so we kind of met with some of the different counselors in the area and asked what target they would like us to do substance use prevention education with. The consensus kind of seems like 7th, 8th grade.
And then, yeah, it seems to me, is there a reason, is it geared more towards rural? I mean, is that why you put Deer Park and West Valley?
So I know that our community health nurse and our program health promotion specialists have actually reached out to quite a few schools. Those were the first 2 that initially got back, that's correct. So, which is great to be able to extend out to some of those rural schools and not just so much in school to provide, but I know that's a big one they want to tackle.
But the $50,000 may not be enough to hit all
Right.
rural.
Right. Yeah. You're welcome. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you. Next up, population health.
Good afternoon. So I have a few things for you guys today. So I know some of you might have seen a press release that was put out by Montana DP that's regarding an increase in chickenpox cases in Montana. So far in Flathead County, we haven't seen an increase, but we're continuing just to keep an eye out and working with healthcare providers to test any suspect cases that might come along. So we'll continue to keep you updated if we see any changes or movement. And then on the report, you probably noticed that I did remove the community level indicator on there. That's a nationwide trend to remove some of those indicators, just because the data that feeds into those really isn't that reliable anymore, just because folks are testing at home and not reporting. And then there's people that are skipping testing altogether. So it doesn't really give us a good picture as to what's going on there. However, individual cases of COVID-19 are still required to be reported to us. So if there's an individual that goes into a healthcare provider, the provider is required to send in that lab result to us as reportable. animals. So we'll continue to keep those cases on our reported, the Board of Health reports. You guys just keep a finger on the pulse of how many cases we're seeing reported to us. And then in terms of outbreaks there, I did decide to change that up just a little bit. Instead of putting it as a bar graph, starting from January 1, I changed it so that we can kind of see what each month brings us. I just broke out the number of outbreaks that we have each month so that moving forward, we can see if there's any trends based on month and time of year. And then on the other side of population health, a good portion of our population health team is currently at the Women for Wellness event that is at the Salish Kootenai College campus. So the mission of that event is to increase the health awareness and healthy living behaviors among the Flathead Indian Reservation women and Lake County women. So our cancer screening program staff and our tobacco prevention staff are up there doing some outreach and education along with a lot of other service providers and educational organizations and things like that. So we're hoping that's going to be a great outreach event. I know it's pretty well attended by the population over there. So, and then lastly, this Saturday is the Logan Health 7th annual is the Spring Into Safety Kids event. And that's a very big event where they have a lot of different organizations and service providers that will go and provide outreach and education, really focused on safety for kiddos. So again, our population health promotion specialist will be at that event this Saturday doing some outreach and regarding child safety seats and tobacco education. So that's another very well attended event. Any questions?
I'm gonna do it again. I haven't seen anything about toxic shock for decades,
Yeah.
and to see one pop up here, it's either ticks or it used to be, feminine hygiene products. So
Right. This one, it was not related to that. It was more of a wound related incident. And the individual was hospitalized but did recover. So, yeah, question. Not something that we see very often at all.
it's been a long time.
Yeah, the toxic shock syndrome really does have to meet very specific criteria to be defined as that. So definitely.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Yeah, thank you. Family plan?
Hello, everybody. So patient numbers in April were holding around average. Nothing new to really report for community education or outreach, pretty standard quo. We did hire a new staff member to operate our syringe exchange program. We hadn't had somebody for about 3 months. She started mid-March. Her name is Rachel Just. So she has just been busy onboarding and learning the new program, and she jumped right in and is doing a really great job. You might notice last month we had about a 60% return rate for our syringes, which is lower than average. Our average is around 84%. We did have 8 new individuals join the program last month, which means they're coming in, not returning any used products, but they're leaving with products. So that could be one of the reasons it's lower than average. And also just having a new staff member in there, she's still kind of learning to communicate program expectations and building trust with participants. So I imagine that number to start getting closer to average as she kind of gets her feet under her. I also wanted to put some perspective into our return rate for syringe exchange compared to other syringe exchanges in Montana. And so there's 4 syringe exchanges operating in Montana right now, Flathead County. So our site has the highest return rate at 84%. Butte stands at 62%. Billings is at 55%. And Missoula is at the lowest at 25%. So having an 84% average and leading the way is something I'm pretty proud of. So just wanted to give you guys some local comparisons of that. Lastly, I wanted to share with you, we were awarded $173,000 for an 18-month pilot program through the Montana Public Health Institute. So this program is titled the Opioid Education and Naloxone Distribution Program. So we're gonna conduct regional opioid and naloxone education. So our site is considered the hub of Region 6. And so Region 6 includes Flathead, Lincoln, Mineral Lake, Sanders, Missoula, and Ravalli County. So a really large region in Montana. We're gonna be that hub that goes out to other stakeholders, public health agencies, to help train them on how to distribute naloxone within their community and how to educate folks on opioid use prevention and education. So that grant started this month and we're gonna hit the ground running and see where this pilot program takes us. And we're pretty excited to meet all these other folks throughout Montana and kind of disperse our efforts past Flathead Valley. So I'll just start reporting on that grant next month and just let you know the progress that we're making with those efforts. Any questions?
I have one, so it's a new program, or you're gonna just redistribute, people to those programs and have.
So Rachel, who's working in our synergy exchange program, is gonna work part-time out of that. And
Okay,
then we have another health promotion specialist who's gonna tag team along with her.
and so then what you'll be doing, you'll send them out to the outlying communities and educate there, so we'll work in conjunction with those.
Yeah, so they'll be going to all those other counties either by car or zooming and doing some virtual meetups. But really wanting to make relationships with those folks in those counties and building that trust. So with that 18 months, we think we'll probably be doing a little bit of travel.
Good.
Yeah. Other questions? Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you. Sweeto.
Good afternoon, Brock Ball, Flag County Mosquito Control. So we're at kind of the peak of our season as far as our setting goes right now. We are running, keep up. And as you all know, the rivers have come up in the past few weeks, so that is keeping us busy with all the seeping that's happening and filling in right around the rivers. So that's kind of where we're concentrating our efforts right now. Especially in Evergreen. We were able to land one seasonal worker. Name's Caitlin. She's been phenomenal so far. So at least we're able to get one person to help. So again, understaffed and with 1,400 sites that we have to get to every 2 weeks. You can see how that's a lot to do. So far this year, no equine or human cases of West Nile in Montana. It's early, culics aren't out yet, so as it gets warmer, we'll start seeing culics emerge. So so far, as of the 17th, we've done 1,150 site inspections, applied over 235 treatments, and covered over 426 acres. So we're that's a lot to do. So we're just trying to keep up. As of, for the rest of the year, I guess, we're just hoping that the rivers stay at what they're at right now. That's probably asking a little much, but yeah, we're hoping it kind of just levels out. As far as compared to last year, things are looking better, and that's what I'm telling a lot of owners. There's kind of like this PTSD of what happened last year. So we're getting a lot of phone calls of people just making sure we're out doing our job and we're gonna alleviate the mosquito issue for them. So trying to help them out and just, telling them that so far so good. And that's it for me. Any questions?
That sounds good. Good work.
Thank you.
All right. Environmental.
Good afternoon, I'm Jim Wardensky with Environmental Health. And, we're busy. Things have really picked up. The numbers that you see here are from April, obviously, but just to give you an example, 1 month ago today, we instituted a policy of with septic applications that we wanted land research request forms filled out first, because we were having some scenarios where people would put in a septic application and pay the fees, and once we did the land research request, we would, determine that what they were hoping to accomplish in their septic application wasn't allowable based on a whole host of restrictions. So then we would have to refund fees and all that. So to try and make that process a little more efficient, now we direct everybody that wants a septic application to fill out that land research request. April 18th, we instituted that. I counted the numbers today. 162 septic applications in. So similarly, the food folks, they told me, I think last week, that in the first 8 days of May, they had 62 plan reviews for various things, from restaurants to public accommodations to mobile food vendors and all that stuff. And it's, each one of those takes anywhere from an hour to 3 hours, depending on what the folks are trying to accomplish there. So the air quality stuff, so far, knock on wood, the new burn permit system seems to be working well. We've gotten some positive feedback about that. The folks that aren't able to get online and accomplish that, they can either come into our office and we can walk them through it. We have a public kiosk, a computer that they can utilize to do that. And I didn't want to set this precedent if we were going to have a whole bunch of people calling in over the phone. And one of the things that can be a little tricky with that is there's a quiz that's associated with it, kind of affirming, that, you're supposed to do this and you're not allowed to do that. And then there's information that they have to agree to through that process. I think there've only been like 3 or 4 people that just absolutely weren't able to get to a computer or come in. And so we've done that over the phone and actually read the information to them, gone through the quiz with them, and then emailed them their permit, just to try and make it as convenient as we can for them from a customer service standpoint. So yesterday was a little bit of a learning experience for us because with the smoke coming in almost overnight, we had our forecasting in place and burning was turned on. And then when the smoke came in, when our staff showed up to the office, we realized the fire folks aren't turning off the ability to burn. So we did. And that was about 9:30 yesterday morning. Well, people had already signed up to burn, and that was recognized. So we'll have to put something in place, that remedies that if there's some kind of phenomenon that occurs, so we don't have people that are slipping in before we get it turned off. So we'll get that figured out. I think that's really all the things I wanted to talk about. I guess lastly, we're doing groundwater monitoring right now. Last year we had a specific person, a temp person that was helping us with that. In looking at the budget and kind of everybody's job duties, I thought this year we would try and just absorb that and all of us pitch in and see if we could accomplish that. And so far, we've been able to do that. But if, going forward, if numbers, we're thinking that maybe building was going down. I don't know if it is or not. The numbers so far this month don't look like that. And then the complexity of the things that we're dealing with are getting more difficult. As an example, we were doing some dye testing up at Isaac Walton Inn to try and figure out on a septic complaint that we had received where the effluent was coming from. And we learned about another, septic system that needs to be replaced. Well, in doing that, working with the person that resides there, we learned that Burlington Northern actually owns the property that the house sits on. And technically, the person that owns the property has to apply for the septic permit. So as you can imagine, dealing with a big corporation and trying to figure that stuff out. Similarly, after I leave here today, we're going on another septic system permit. The system is failing. And the only place for a drain field is in a Bonneville Power Administration easement. So it's those types of things that really complicate stuff and really take a lot of time to get worked through. So, you know, again, sometimes even though the numbers are growing, it's even worse because the complexity of each of these systems that we're dealing with, trying to sort through that. Any questions?
I have a question, Jim.
Yes, sir.
You know, last week, and I think you, or the last meeting, and you mentioned it today. So there have been issues with people, I assume, have built a home or something or a building and then find out that their septic application process should have come first, not
Yes, sir.
second or third.
Yeah.
So right now, it seems like are we reacting to that, or is there a way to be proactive in that so that that information can get out to the realtors or something initially? Because as a homeowner, or somebody coming in and not knowing this, thinking Montana is home of the free and the wild, you know, I can see where people could assume that they could do certain things. So is there something we can do as a body to prevent that from happening by educating, you know, realtors or whoever and say, look, if you're going to sell this property, or engineering firms, you need Mr. You know, property owner, you need to talk to these guys. Have we done that, or is that anything that could be done? You make an excellent presentation. I think you'd be great in getting out in the community and talking to these people and telling them so that we don't run into those problems afterward. I think being proactive would help all of us.
Sure, and I know in the past they've done that with realtors, and we'd be happy to do that again. Part of that land research request, procedure is to kind of ward that off.
Okay.
Just today, one of our sanitarians went to a deposition regarding a similar circumstance where people purchased a piece of property thinking that they were gonna be able to build Disneyland on it. And lo and behold, it may not even be able to put a single family dwelling on it, depending on the circumstance. So, you know, you're completely right. The sooner that we can alert people to that, and that's, you know, getting that land research request done. And what I've done is all of those come to me. I distribute them to staff members. We make that initial phone call or email out to them and say, here's what is allowable. And, you know, now you can submit your application based on this more accurate information. So,
So how often does it happen that somebody's already started construction, for example, or through the process? Is that a problem, or has that happened? In the past?
sometimes we we just were able to work through another one up in Essex. Actually a little bit beyond that, where that poor guy, and some of it is his own fault, got ahead of himself, constructed a house and didn't realize he was in a flood zone. And 3 years last month it took, because he had to deal with FEMA then, because it was an unmapped flood zone, and get approval and all that. It took on, and just now, this week, I think it was this week on Monday, we were able to go up there and do a site evaluation and give the thumbs up based on all the paperwork. So, you know, you feel for these folks, but yet at the same time, but I get it, and that's part of those conversations we have internally.
Right.
You know, the analogy that I always use, because of my police work is, you know, if anybody's ever been involved in a car accident And as a police officer, I've investigated thousands of them. So I show up, I say, hey, can I get your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance? You too, and wait here, I'll be right back. I fill out a exchange form. Here you go, I'll do a state crash report. See you, have a nice day. And the people are standing there like, I don't know what just happened, you know? To me, it was second nature, but to them, it's like, I don't know what to do next. What do I expect? How do I? So it's our responsibility to walk them through each of those processes to the best of our ability. And, you know, make that information accessible and, you know, I get it. Sometimes you just don't know. So you think you're doing the right thing. And then it's further frustrated because with the time lag on every step of the construction process in this day and age, you know, and then materials, you know, we've seen an increase in imposing permits after the fact on septic systems where some of the installers will get a little bit ahead of themselves and think, well, maybe I can keep the system a little bit and get the tank in because I'm, you know, waiting on the tank and it's not allowed by the regulations and it's a $1,500 fine, you know, essentially. So we've seen an increase in that because people are impatient and, you know, if I don't get my installer to do it now, I'll have to wait another 2 months until I can get back on the schedule, or, you know, the tank company is this far behind, I better order it and get it now. And so there are a lot of dynamics that go into this stuff. So daily, we're trying to educate folks and provide that information that the very first thing you should do is see if you can get a septic on a piece of property, you know, if you're purchasing it or whatever. And so we'll continue to be diligent about that.
Well, here's the last question I have. I'm not, you know, knowing the inside of how it works, but so if somebody comes in and the rule is open to interpretation, let's say to a degree, safety and security and that kind of stuff. Is there a standard that we err on the side of the applicant or we err on the side of the county? If that makes sense. I mean, because when somebody comes in, because I've had several people come into your department for septic and one group just raved about how helpful your people were. And that they thought it was going to be a confrontation. It wasn't. So that's actually a positive. Then the other one had a kind of a legacy thing and they come in and they're kind of adversarial. So they don't understand exactly what you talked about, you know, here's the form, fill it out. So is there a policy that there's, you know, it's a gray area? Can we make the application, or I mean, I know that's subjective, can we benefit the claimant? Because to me, I think our job is to provide solutions and answers and how we can get it done, not how we can't get it done. And I'm not suggesting that that's not, but is that applicable? I mean, to me, that would be applicable to us and to what we're trying to do. So right now, is there any way that we can, you decide that, or is that just decided by you and, you know, your staff, or I'm sure Jen is involved with a lot of that too.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've tried to do is increase the level of consistency in how we do business. Because when I stepped into this role, there were some things that had been done previously that caused us some problems. And it's kind of a slippery slope, in my opinion, when you start trying to accommodate stuff too much, because then you lose sight of. So as an example, today, the sanitarian that was in the deposition, and I've been preaching this since the day I showed up over there, we have to do it the same way each and every time for that level of consistency. And after he went through that deposition, he said, Jim, I absolutely understand now the importance of why every detail needs to be in place, because those attorneys were grilling me over each and every step. So at the same time, we're working through kind of a long-term problem, that's been going on for about 2 years with a retail food establishment. And, trying to get them into compliance. So as we approach that problem, we met with him today and, brought, a number of options and said, you know, we're not so rigid that we're gonna hold you to this.
That's a good point. Thank
You
you.
know-
That's the word I'm looking for. Richard.
Yep, maybe we can do this, maybe we can do this. The financial aspect was a consideration, so we talked with the health officer and she was willing to waive a fee to help, because you're right again. The ultimate goal is to get folks into compliance, and to have that good working relationship with them. And the gentleman stepped up here during the public comment and said, is there any way? That's one of those things that I had to clean up when I stepped into this role, because it was kind of perverted, if you will. On this case, we'll do this. On this case, we'll do this. Given these details, we'll do this. And then pretty soon, the engineers, the consultants, the installers, the public all had a different understanding of how we were approaching things. So every project then turns into an argument and a disagreement. So, if they're educated to the point where it's like, no, every single time we do it this way, every single time and it's funny because, that educational process really happens fairly quickly. The land research request, like I said, within the month, people have been coming in and they said, oh yeah, we heard, you gotta fill out the land, so pretty soon it's just, that's the way it's always been, and that's the way we have to do it. But we try and be flexible, and we try to be accommodating.
I think that's the issue for a lot of people that would come in, is that they think there's a standard protocol that can't be deviated from because that's the way it is. And I think that's one of the things, the answer can't always be because, it has to be because of this. But I still, at some point in time, as this valley evolves and as we get older here, you're gonna have issues with legacy systems that go back when there were no standards at all, and then they're gonna come in here. It could be a family issue, it could be whatever. They're gonna be, I think, shocked at some of the things that they're going to find, that when they have to go to replace the system, it says the system like you were talking about, or somebody was talking about, like up in the canyon in those areas. So I guess what I'd rather say is I'd rather as a body see us err on the side of the client, of the customer, without putting our standards at risk per se, but let them know that we're doing whatever we can to help them to achieve their goals with the least impact and I'll go back to what Commissioner said a couple months ago, we're not a for-profit organization, we're a service organization. And that's what I would hope for, that we would get to that, because I have heard a few instances on part of this company here all the time from there. And so I'd like to see us have some way that if somebody came and said, well, this is happening, I could say, well, here's the standard. And I absolutely agree, you have to have some identifiable standard, because if none of you have ever been in a deposition, you understand that it is an interrogation under pressure and you are under oath. So having that, I can see, would be very helpful. So thank you. And I like the idea that I hope that we're not so rigid that we can't help it. As a police officer, you have to be a good guy as well as a bad guy, and you understand that part of it very well. And there are some people that you need to help out, that kind of thing, without, of course, putting the public at risk. Sure. Thank you, Jim.
Yes, sir.
Is there a separate process for someone with a legacy system as opposed to a new build? Is there, or do they have to approach it just the same way as you would?
Well, if the system, if it's,
Let's say it was put in so many years ago, it's not compliant with what you would do now.
right,
Do they have to bring it up to date?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, up to the current standards, so, and that's kind of what we're looking at in this situation up by the Isaac Walton Inn. We went up there to do this dye test and, the gentleman, we looked at it, there's steel riser coming out of the ground, and I looked in the riser and the sewage is up into the riser, which it shouldn't be. And, you know, it's like, this is not good. Where's your drain field? Well, I don't even know if I have one. I think these two trees are sucking up all the effluent that's coming out of it. And my gray water pipe goes out the side hill and runs down towards the creek. And so when I put the dye in the riser and asked him to run his bathtub and flush his toilet, fortunately, I was standing far enough away because when I put the metal lid on it, the next thing I knew, there was a gusher of fluorescent green and yellow dye coming out of the. And, you know, I feel for the guy, you know, what I'm hoping is that in that scenario, Burlington Northern doesn't say, well, sorry, get out, you know, we're evicting you, or he's leasing this, he's lived there since 1971, you know. But because of the constraints of the, piece of land and all that stuff, it's gonna be a challenge, you know. And then also working with Isaac Walton, where, you know, the complainant on this whole thing, has lived in that area since 1952, he told me. And, he said that, Isaac Walton was constructed in 1939, and if that's when the original system went in, you know, that's probably why we're seeing a clay tile pipe coming out into, some kind of catch basin down below. We don't know what that service is, and that's what we're trying to determine with the dye test, so. Yeah, so they would have to bring it up to current standards, and sometimes that's challenging because, of the constraints of this, you know, setbacks, and our regulations have changed, and what we do our best to work with folks, and that's, you know, I mean, like, I express that every single day that, you know, I want us to help people succeed in whatever they're trying to accomplish, provided it's safe and supported by science and, you know, all of that, so.
I appreciate I don't know if it came up on the website though, the explanation for why people get, under food service, bad marks, and what you do to bring that up, because I was very curious as to why someone gets this P, and I can see from this, explanation, I appreciate that. Do you have enough personnel in your department to handle all of this work that's there? Is that something that needs to be addressed, or are you okay that way?
Even having,
Is there any way to get more?
yeah, you know, and it's one of the things that, because I'm new in my role, next month will be a year that I've been there. And, the way that I've always approached things is, let's evaluate and see if there are more efficient ways that we can do things first before we ask for more. Because then when we get to the point, or if we get to the point where we're asking for more, and the questions are asked, did you try this? Did you look at this? Have you determined this? I can say yes, 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 you know, and provide a comprehensive answer. And I think, you know, we're getting there. Obviously, that's conversations that I would have with the health officer, you know, about that stuff. And at one point in my life, I was self-employed, so I know what it's like to, you know, the cost of every nut and bolt, and when you flip the light switch on, there's an expenditure for that. And that's the way I approach managing resources. So I try and be a very good steward of the taxpayer's dollar. And I'm not gonna just arbitrarily say, well, we need more folks, you know, give me some more, give me some more. I wanna make sure, that's why, you know, with the groundwater monitoring stuff, I wanted to try and absorb that first and see if we could do it. There's some other things that, programs that we're working on where, again, we're trying to deal with that internally. We had a temporary secretarian through, I think, Express, where she was coming in and doing non-degradation for us on the septic permits. And twofold: one, I wanted to cut that expenditure, and two, I thought it was important for our staff members to make sure they knew how to do it. because that person had retired from our office and likely won't be around forever. So from a training standpoint, we need to know how to do that and not just rely on one person. So subsequently, two of our, well, actually three, know now how to do that non-degradation stuff efficiently. And we've been able to, I don't think we've used, the temporary person in probably 5 months. So.
So if you need more people, he goes through you.
We have to propose it to the commissioners, but yes.
And then I'm sorry, one last question I had was, did you have a comment on what the community, member was, the issue he brought up?
Yeah, so. Again, it's a departure from how they were accustomed to doing things, where they could just go right to the variance process. And the reason that it's set up that way is to make sure that we, as staff, are applying those rules and regulations correctly. And again, if we change that, that's just another avenue that we have to navigate on this project or that project. And I think that we've done a really good job at making sure that we're conscientious about time constraints. In the recent past year, we've had scenarios where we've been able to expedite things in that particular situation, and that's something that we'll address in June. But through that appeals process, I think his office was frustrated because they didn't get the appeal letter to the Board of Health to us in time. And had he would have been presenting this stuff here today. But, you know, and as much as we try and, again, accommodate some of that stuff, you know, we can't hold everybody's hand through each and every process. Again, and there was a ton of communication, email and phone calls and all that stuff with that office to try and get it to that point. And they just didn't do it. And it's unfortunate for them, so.
So you think we better leave the system as this?
I do, yeah, just again, it's that standardized process. It's laid out that way in the septic regulations. And, you know, that way, if you know, God forbid, the health department ever is sued or questioned or whatever, we can point to that and say, this is the way we do it each and every time. So no special treatment for anybody, you know, you follow the process.
Would it be appropriate to send him a letter or something? Or is it just, he was just made a comment?
I think
I think we're moving through the
yeah,
process.
he's moving through the process, so I think it was just more of a frustration.
Right, but his question is more, why don't you change the system? And just to respond to that. But we don't, it's okay, I'm just asking.
If you watch the video, this is recorded. You watch the video and you
Yeah, I had a couple things. Yeah, I'm the one that has for the last, a whole bunch of years worked through this department, the sanitation department. I had a couple things during this discussion, and most of you guys haven't got the experience I've got doing this, but one thing I would say as far as the rigidity of rules are rules, through my experience has always been, especially in the last, I don't know, 10 years, we've just got excellent sanitarians who always had, and they're willing to work with you. You get out there and there's an issue, there's a problem, they're not inflexible at all, you know, let's deal with it. And I just congratulate them. I don't know whether you guys are aware of that, but that whole department works very well with the people that are come forthright and honest when they come forward with problems and issues. So I wanted to do that. And also, how are we doing on registering or licensing our numerous VRBOs throughout the town? Because I know there's a whole bunch that have not been inspect it. And how are we gonna do that? How are we gonna, make them come into compliance? I think there again, that's part of the job of the Board of Health.
Sure. Because of everything that we have going on, just office-wide, largely the four, food and consumer sanitarians that we have deal with the vacation rental stuff. And, you know, the approach that we've taken, just because of the volume of it, is if we get a complaint on it, we address it. We haven't been going out and proactively trying to identify places, and deal with stuff. You know, if they come in for a license and we recognize that for whatever reason, they don't have the appropriate septic, to accommodate what they're trying to do, you know, we try and work with them to get through that, to get them licensed. Again, it's, you know, we would much rather put in extra effort to try and get them into compliance. So that way, we can go and inspect that stuff and make sure that everybody's safe. But it's just the sheer number of them. You know, I think last year, there was a reporter that came and did a piece on the Flathead. Danielle Pierce and I were interviewed by her. They did their own investigation into the numbers. I think we have right around somewhere between 12 and 1,400 vacation rentals that are licensed. The reporter said based on what she had done, it was more than double of that exists in the valley. You know, so we've tried to work closer with the municipalities too. And that way, if they're alerted to something, they can let us know and we can try and react to that. You know, it just comes down to, you know, the ability to address it because of, you know, staff and volume of work that we have. And
How about when you do get one of these, and we've run into it before, where you constantly tell something they have to do this in order to come into compliance. And then you say, we'll let them slide a little bit, and you go, because we're nice. And then you tell them again, and they still say they blow you off, and then finally, is there a point where the county attorney's office will help you with enforcement on some of these? Have you ever moved to an enforcement on any of these?
yeah. So, oftentimes what happens is when we're alerted to it, we don't let anything slide just because the process takes so long anyway on everything that we do. Letters are written, and sometimes just a letter from our office prompts people to come into compliance. Sometimes it makes them quit, you know, as far as like a vacation rental. Once they hear from us, they stop doing it. Other times they persist, we persist, and it goes to the county attorney's office. And, you know, the situation that I referenced earlier with the food establishment, there was an arrest warrant out for that individual for almost 2 years. And just this past week it was served. And so, you know, we're working with different entities to try and make that happen. Some of you may know the county attorney's office right now is very short staffed. So, you know, at every level of government, there are things that hurdles that we're trying to work through. And, you know, again, that's the last thing that we want. You know, what we're hoping for all through that process is that we're able to get those folks to comply, you know, and give them every opportunity, you know. Today when we were out there talking with that gentleman, it was like, hey, you know, if you do this, you could be a mobile food vendor. If you decide that you're going to be, you know, fixed establishment, then you have to comply with the septic regulations, you know. Maybe we can look at this and this will help you out with this scenario. You know, it's just kind of brainstorming with those folks you know, trying to get them to succeed, you know? I mean, their success, to me, is our success. And then, you know, on various levels, if their business prospers, then it's more tax dollars for the county, and, you know, it's just a positive for everybody, the way I see it, so.
Correct me if I'm wrong. When folks put in for a vacation rental, they only need to be inspected the first year to receive a license, and then they just renew the license.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so they only have to get inspected once.
Yes.
That's my question. So it's not that arduous of a procedure.
The inspection process may not be, and really the two biggest hurdles for many folks are the zoning issues and then also the septic permit.
Both important.
Both very important, you know, and then, you know, many of the complaints that we get in reference to that are, you know, the impact that it has on the surrounding properties, you know, the increased traffic and, you know, a whole host of things. So, you know, we try and work with all of the stakeholders involved to try and facilitate and accommodate and make sure that everybody's abiding by what they should be well,
I think information is also important for those folks to know what they have to do in order to have a vacation rental, you know, that they're well aware of all the rules that are involved. So that's kind of an education thing we have to look at also.
yes, sir.
But thank you for answering my questions. That's all I had for you. Anyone else?
I have a question, also regarding VRBO. Didn't they just pass, at the state level, like a new law that you can't have zoning against VRBOs and Airbnbs? Like, it's your property, you can do what you want. So if you reside there for 7 months, then you can do whatever, or, yeah, 7 months, I thought, then you can VRBO or Airbnb it.
I'm not familiar with that, but I have an email with some.
I'm not gonna pull together, that's right.
Yeah, okay, I just was interested, because that's like another thing, like the zoning part, right? So if it's zoned against, because like I live in a part of town that's zoned against Airbnbs, VRBOs in less than 3 months at a time, but now that's been potentially removed, so I'm not like, I'm not wondering what happens.
Well, I have an email in my list of emails right now that
Yeah,
came in this week with some legislative updates that I need to take a look at, so I can try and get an answer on that.
Anyone further? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, moving on, health officer report.
Oh, I followed that.
Yeah,
So we've been busy with, some meetings, so we've had the Under the Big Sky meeting again. That's going really well. Danielle and Jim have worked really well with them. They're very interested in mosquitoes, potentially mitigation out there, but, I will say that they are working very hard to try to work out, a healthy event, at least from our end, so we do appreciate that with them. We went to a flood meeting, so maybe this is good news for Brock. We're only at 85% snowpack. And so flooding is low unless we have some sort of rain event according to the flood meeting. So we met with that with all the stakeholders for that. So that was good news, but you know, they can be wrong. Along with the food remedy, we've had a couple cases just recently where well, not recently, there's the one that's been going on for 2 years, but due to Jim and his staff's respect that they show the individuals, I think they've been able to remedy a lot of things. And I think it's important to note that what happened in Bozeman with the that Dave sushi, how important food safety is. And Jim and I think it was Josie dealt with another individual just recently, and they went in, did education. The staff really wanted to know what they were doing wrong, really wanted to make those changes, and were able to do it. But the way that Jim and his staff approached them, I think is just a very kinder way, and I think that people are really receptive to that. So I truly appreciate them and what they're doing out there for that. So along those lines, Lisa and her team had a case, and I don't want to get into too many details, but we had a communicable disease that was reported to us. And I just really appreciate, Lisa and her team and what they did. We had it reported, it was for a kiddo in a school. It would have counted for an exclusion for 3 other kids in that class due to what the disease was. Lisa and her staff kind of really started to look into what the doctor had diagnosed and kind of questioned it a little bit, kind of pumped the brakes a little. And we were able to get the kiddo in for testing, and we were able to get a confirmatory test because the state wanted us to potentially exclude for probable. And they pumped the brakes and said, we want an actual diagnosis. If we're gonna exclude 3 kiddos for 21 days and there's only 24 days left of school. And we were able to get the child in, get them confirmed, and it was not what that doctor had said it was. Yeah. So truly appreciate their diligence and, really looking out for, so those little kids didn't be excluded, because I did not want to exclude 3 little kids for 21 days. I was like, let's not do that. Austin has done a phenomenal job at the shelter. He's about up to $25,000 of savings right now that he's been really looking at some things that have just some cost reductions that we can do that will be able to help. He's also recognized some safety concerns down there. And so he worked with Pat McCarthy just today or yesterday, who's their insurance person, and kind of did a walkthrough to see some of the things that we can do that aren't in place to make that place a little bit safer and maybe a more communicative with us if, because there's so much time that nobody is down there. So a way to communicate with us and let, if there's something going wrong, if there's a fire or if there's something breaking in or those kinds of things. So he's really looking at that. So I appreciate everything that he's doing out there and being able to see it with a new set of eyes. And that always helps for new people coming in. We're gonna have probably a strategic planning presentation next month, correct, Keelan? Keelan and Malia will be doing a strategic planning. They'll explain it more, but just, we'll be sending that stuff prior to it. Yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, as soon as the documents are finalized, they'll get it out to you, and then that will kind of be the June meeting, for that presentation. There's been some security things that have kind of been going on in the county. I think everybody read about it with what happened over in the courthouse, and it sounded like they did an excellent job with what they were able to do. Interestingly enough, a few weeks prior to that, we had some other concerns brought to us. So Sarah, our co-responder, Jim, Austin with their police background, and Wendy Olson, who's on our safety committee, they're going to be looking at some of our just our security things within our building, what we can do to make things safer, maybe looked at some de-escalation trainings, those kinds of things to kind of help our staff get a little bit safer and being able to just work through some things. So I think that's great that they're looking at that and moving forward with that. And then Mandy was able to procure, and I think it's exciting. I can't believe you didn't bring it up. Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna. No. We're able to get a testing machine. It was a testing machine we're going to be able to get in-house. They're giving us the testing machine, and we'll be able to stop some of our supplies to somebody else that we're paying for the supplies. But we're going to be able to test chlamydia and gonorrhea, and
It's gonna be an in-house machine where we can do chlamydia and gonorrhea and do the test in 30 minutes in-house. Before a patient leaves, we can give them their chlamydia gonorrhea results, treat them if they're positive before they even leave the building. But right now, we're using Logan Health for those labs, and it takes maybe 3 or 4 days to get results back. And they're generating revenue off of us doing those tests, and now we can keep all that revenue in-house and do better patient care.
so that's pretty exciting.
$12,000 machine for free.
So this should really help Lisa's team for the CD follow-up and being able to get the individuals there, get their information, and not lose them up to follow-up, because that's something that we strive to do, is to not lose patients to follow-up. And when you send them home for 3 or 4 days, they don't return phone calls and those kinds of things. So pretty exciting. And I think that's it.
Anyone have any questions? Yeah. All right, committee reports? We have no reports at time. Are we looking at a environmental health committee meeting?
Yeah, we will be having one this next month. Yes.
I guess at this point, we'll go to board member discussion. Anyone have anything you'd like to bring up and bounce around?
No, but I do want to say, I think this might be Jessica's last meeting. So I do, I don't know, there. I do want to thank Jessica for her time and commitment to the board, and we truly appreciate it, and we'll miss you, and hopefully we'll still see you down at the shelter.
Yeah.
I think then, so. we
I've been
truly
nothing but
appreciate it.
exceptionally impressed by the work that you guys do. Thank you for doing it. Thank you for stepping up. So much. I've been taking all of those hiring meetings for a long time. Yes, so you're a real lifesaver. I'll be here doing amazing job. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, just a couple of things. First, addressing the public comment we had and then the discussion about those things. If anyone's listening online, I think that it's important for everyone to understand, especially the community members out there that we serve, that policies and processes and regulations are there for everybody's safety, not just theirs, but the community at large. And they're there for a reason. So we can't just willy-nilly, make exceptions. So the protection thing is huge. The thing with VRBOs, this is kind of a touchy area because everybody knows that there's an issue out there. And city council with Kalispell, we capped it to a certain amount. That's how we work within the law, we capped that. But we also use a software program, the planning department has a software program that actually cross-references who's registered with the state bed tax and all that kind of stuff. But then you go down that next step. So everyone's concerned about this. If the level of concern reaches that next level, we go from being complaint-driven to having a compliance officer, which is growing government and spending the money to go hunt down violators. And the city of Kalispell hasn't done that. And I don't know if the county would want to do that. At some point, if it gets to be that big of an issue, it might be something to at least have a discussion about. At what point do we put staff on that sort of a project, say, let's investigate and control? And that may be a discussion worth having. It doesn't mean it would actually be a compliance officer hired position, but I think it's a discussion worth having given the concern of this community and with that. And I think it's great that Flathead County is that trendsetter out there with the syringe exchange program and all that stuff. But the fact that we are that is, I think, a great compliment to this entire staff, office, and everything else. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? I just say, thank you for this couple of years. Doing this job. I haven't been around you all that long. You've been through some rough times when I first got here. And thanks again for saying that. So, if there's no further business to be brought before, may I have a motion?
Move to adjourn.
It's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.